DUP's Brexit spokesperson, Sammy Wilson. You haven't seen the deal yet?
We haven't.
Are you in the mood to reject it?
We have seen the headlines which have been put into the public domain by the EU, presumably, and what we see from the headlines would indicate that the deal which is now being presented to the Cabinet today is no different from the deal which the Prime Minister rejected in March and said no Prime Minister could ever put her pen to.
Right. Well, let's be clear about this, because what we're also hearing is that any backstop would be all of the UK, not Northern Ireland specific. So what is the problem with that?
Well, that's not what is in what has been even in the leaked information so far. First of all, the UK will be tied to the customs union, which is something the Prime Minister promised she wouldn't allow to happen. And secondly, Northern Ireland will be tied to the customs union and also tied to current and future regulations emanating from the EU. And indeed, we tried to get a safeguard put into that the Northern Ireland Assembly would have the final say as to whether or not those regulations should apply to Northern Ireland. That has been removed. And so what we would find in the future is that Northern Ireland would have rules about agriculture, production, labour hours, etc., all dictated by Europe. We wouldn't have sight of those. We wouldn't even know what they're going to be like in 5 or 6 years' time. And if they're detrimental to our economy, we just have to swallow it.
But Northern Ireland does have different rules already. It's got different corporation tax. It's got different political parties. It's got its own assembly, if that was up and running. So there are differences between Northern Ireland and the island of Britain anyway, aren't there?
Yeah, but the significant thing is, first of all, those changes and those differences are as a result of what was devolved from Westminster to the Northern Ireland Assembly and are made by the Northern Ireland Assembly on the basis of what is good for Northern Ireland. What we have in this document, as we understand it, is that the EU, for now and in the future, would be able to say, these are the rules that apply to Northern Ireland. If you don't like it, tough. They come from Europe and you've got to obey them.
OK, so let's be clear about this. You're saying the confidence and supply arrangement is off on this one. You're going to vote against the government.
We're saying that the government had agreed an agreement with us that they would deliver a certain kind of Brexit that wouldn't break up the United Kingdom and that would honour the referendum. It's clear from what we have seen of this deal that that's not happening, and we will not be voting for this particular deal.
So what do you think should happen then? Because that means Britain possibly heading out of the European Union without a deal.
Well, you know, it's not just us, of course, who are saying this. There are members of the Labour Party who are saying it. There are members of the Conservative backbench who are saying it. There are Remainers within the Conservative Party who are saying it.
So
the Prime Minister has got a problem.
For yourself. I mean, if you're party to defeating Theresa May's deal, what happens then in your view?
We're taking the Prime Minister at her own word. No deal is better than a bad deal. And a bad deal is one which would break up the United Kingdom, which would leave us tied to the EU, which would leave, whether or not we break those ties, up to the European Union and not up to the British Parliament. That's a bad deal, and by her own definition, that should not be accepted by Parliament.
And if that brings down the Prime Minister?
Well, what happens to the Prime Minister is really up to the Conservative Party. We don't decide who the leader of the Conservative Party is, but I suspect that she couldn't survive losing a vote in the House of Commons on that, but that's not a matter which we'd be involved in.
You do not feel on behalf of the DUP that you have a personal loyalty to this Prime Minister, even although she's the one who did the deal effectively.
Our agreement is with the Conservative Party. We wanted to see stable government in the United Kingdom for the next 5 years. We still want to support the Conservative Party to give that stable government over the remaining time of this Parliament, and we will work towards that. But the one thing which we will not do, and which a large number of our own party now seem will not do, is to accept a deal which she said in the first instance she would never sign.
See, a lot of people are going to say a majority in Northern Ireland wanted to stay within the European Union anyway. It's quite clear that a majority in Northern Ireland don't want to have a hard border between North and South. This deal delivers that. So who are you to stand against it?
Well, I mean, two things. First of all, majority in London decided to stay. Are you saying there should be a separate arrangement for London? A majority of Scotland said they wanted to stay. Should there be a separate arrangement for Scotland? That's what I mean by the breakup of the United Kingdom. And as far as a hard border is concerned, we have no concern about that because, and here's the irony, the EU have actually guaranteed the Irish government, even in the event of a no deal, there will be no hard border. And this is what we can't understand. If in the event of no deal, there's no hard border, how in the event of a deal?
What are we all arguing over then?
Well, that's what we want to know, and we believe, and you made reference to it in that earlier interview, this is not about the ease of trade across the border. This is not about securing the integrity of the European single market. This is all about a punishment beating for the UK because they dared to vote to leave the EU. And unfortunately, the Prime Minister has allowed that punishment beating to be administered. And that punishment bidding will in my belief, damage the UK economy and damage the UK constitution. That's why this deal should be rejected.
Sammy Wilson, thank you very much indeed for joining us.